College basketball fans, welcome back to the College Ball Show. He's Marshall, I'm Chris, and we're here to discuss banter. I'd say predict, but we don't have a ton of prediction to do for this week. All sorts of stuff, though, when it comes to college basketball. And I'll tell you what, man, it is March. In fact, March 8th, and we all know what that means. Knock on wood that we can get through this week and everything gets into the next week in the big dance. Obviously, upon us is the conference championship tournaments. And to think, when I was a little kid and even a teenager, they didn't even have these conference tournaments a lot of times. A lot of times you would actually either have an extended 2 games, or you'd have a bye week in there, or you'd just wait a little bit longer, 10 days or whatnot. But that is no longer the case. Obviously, we are into a whole lot of stuff when it comes to that. It's really exciting, and to think that here we are, probably on the same Monday a year ago, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host here in just a second, but we're on the same Monday as we were a year ago, and by midweek, the whole shit shut down. I mean, the whole thing just shut down, and God, it's crazy how quick time can go by, man. Just unbelievable. We will get into some of the action that happened the last couple of days. We do have some injuries to talk about, some major like Villanova, some minor like Michigan. We'll see how everybody kind of closed out the regular season. There are some, conference championships available as far as punching your ticket to the big dance. I'm talking to you, Gophers. So there is potential for some Cinderella stuff, some team that needs it more than the other one. We'll see what happens. But if this is your first time listening to the College Ball Show, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-It-Over Radio. You don't have to listen to it on Blog Talk and download the show there or listen to the browser. You can find this here show under the Rope-It-Over Radio podcast on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, almost across the board. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found almost anywhere. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to the Grueling Truth. We'll be drooling here soon. TheGruelingTruth.com. It's basketball, football, baseball, boxing, everything in between. And one more thing before we talk about what's going on in college basketball this week. If you're thinking about cutting the cord, or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. Maybe you don't have cable and you want to watch the tournament and you need TNT and TBS and whatnot. I got something for you. It's called AT&T TV Now. It's live streaming cable. There is a 7-day free trial. Of course, when you sign up, the plans start as low as $55 a month. You can stream it anywhere. They have the cloud DVR. Just for signing up, you get a free week of HBO Max. If you get the Max package, that'll include HBO Max plus a free month of Showtime, which is normally $11. That's AT&T TV Now. Like I said, live streaming cable. Okay. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, Marshall, it is really crazy how, the old saying, how time flies and all that, but time has just completely flown by. To think that we really did a show. We did a show on the Monday a year ago, and then we went into the classics for a couple of weeks. I think 3 or 4 shows worth. We did a bunch of classic college football or college basketball stuff. We were talking about the great teams, the great tournaments, so just a variety of stuff. And then obviously we moved to the NBA, kind of classic stuff when the Jordan documentary came out and whatnot. But how time flies, man. Here we are a year, basically to the day, during the week where the first morning session, so to speak, afternoon session started for the Big East, and then the whole shit went down the tube.
Oh, yeah, and I hope it doesn't happen again. We're seeing a lot of progress across the country, and I would say that aside from not having a lot of fans, just in sports in general, and even though they're starting to come back, like everything's been going in the right direction. And I really, really want to enjoy this conference championship weekend. I really want to enjoy March Madness itself and fill out a bracket because it was the 11th when I went out I remember I went out for the whole weekend. I was getting ready just to have drinks and watch a bunch of college basketball, and that's when the Rudy Gobert news happened and everything really shut down, and we're about to just look past that as a thing of the past, and we're close. So I'm hoping that we get to enjoy in what we were saying before the show should be a really couple of great conference tournaments. The Big 12 and the Big 10, and in my opinion, especially it's smaller, but the Big East have been three super competitive conferences this year. And these conference tournaments, especially with a lot of kind of blue blood school teams on the bubble, should be really fun and enjoyable to watch. As right now, a school like Duke, a school like Kentucky, Sparty, those schools are either really slim chances of making it or maybe walking in the back door. So that kind of adds a little more fun to the conference tournament weekend. And yeah, it's just, and also if you are a team who's even near the bubble, you really got no gray area. This is a time where you really got to step up because the committee is going to look at a lot of different things this year, whether, well, this team has a couple of more losses, but they had a 30-day layoff. So, when the criteria, Chris, can be so different for so many teams this year, like a team like Xavier, who to me is not looked that good this year at all, but for some reason their win-loss records is respectable, and they had like a 3-week drought or like a couple of like weeks off of COVID. So, I think if a team like them can win a couple of games and kind of have a little easier run than normal, like if you're a team going against them, you got to win. It'll be really interesting to see how bubble teams and teams who had injuries and teams who had COVID layoffs get judged. So the best way to get into the tournament, Chris, is at least just try to win 2 games in your conference tournament. Then your essay or your application to the committee looks a lot better.
Well, the best way is just to win that damn tournament. Then for F the committee, I'm in. No, you're right. It's still seeding, though. And it's true. You go through bracketology, and you're seeing a couple teams. You're like, really? Huh. Okay. I mean, yeah, no, I get it. I do get it. But, let me see their resume. And, yeah, even like 7th and 8ths and 9ths and 10s, I've noticed that the last couple of weeks where a team will pop up and I go, are they really? Well, this is a different type of season. So, yeah, that is kind of interesting. Real quick, are you happy as a Dallas Cowboys fan right now? We forgot to mention.
I got the little bit of a tease and prayer that Russell, if they're going to trade Russ, he's going to be a Cowboy. So I would love to have Russell Wilson represent the star down here, but I will take Dak. Yes, I can't help but like the guy. For all we know, he's a good person. I think that we can get him to lead us the right way, but we still got to fire our head coach. So I'm very happy. I'm happy for Dak. I can't help but love the guy for all I know. But McCarthy has to go.
Man, how long has he been there?
1 year.
Damn, dude. Damn, just out the door right away. Okay,
Yep.
True, right? That goes back to like Green Bay stuff or something. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I did notice some of that stuff that you're talking about as far as you look at a team, and it's funny because you say Xavier, because I was looking at bracketology, I said, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess, and there will be, just like every year, some I don't knows. Maybe this year, some people will argue, since it's so up in the air sometimes with this stuff, and if they hadn't had a pause then, or they got their pause out of the way or whatever, that some people, some teams are going to close really well and make a run. But we've seen that VCU. We've seen that plenty of times now, even since they've gone to 68 in those plans. So I think it'll just be interesting, is all get out, just to sound old. But no, really, I'm just excited that this is happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can't sit there and say it has the same, full steam ahead as last year. But we were talking about it near the end of the show. This is going to be a damn good year. And just talking about the last 2 days or so, Saturday and Sunday of college ball, a couple things stood out to me. A handful of things actually on Saturday, let's say. But Illinois getting wins with or without their stud point guard really tells you something about that squad. And then Oklahoma State, too, getting it done without their stud Cunningham tells you something about that. And we talked about this off air. Cunningham, the only really rip that you got on him is he doesn't necessarily start the game looking for his shot. And maybe in a high-profile matchup, or it's to go to the Sweet 16 or go to the Elite 8 or something like that, maybe he'll change his strategy there. But no matter what, once the game gets going, then and when it's time to go into takeover mode, Cade Cunningham can do that. But without him and without that Likely or whatever that, another guy they're missing, and they go into Morgantown and get the job done 85-80. This is a squad that we've been looking at all year, paying attention to, and here they are now, Marshall. Oklahoma State now has 8 Quadrant 1 wins. That's tied with Michigan and Illinois as the top in the country. Those two really stood out to me on Saturday for the Saturday games. Oklahoma State getting that thing done without their star, and maybe the fact that he was trying to get his teammates going gave him more confidence to be like, hey, we've played a good chunk of games without him scoring. It's just impressive in a lot of ways. And like I said, Illinois to take on talented teams and win with or without their guy in the way they've closed, it's just damn impressive. But especially Oklahoma State, because I didn't see them being the team they are. Now we're in March.
Well, what surprises me with the box score, Chris, is the fact that if you look at it, 22, 20, 35, 27, 30, 21, 27, 18. That's the minutes played for 8 different Oklahoma State players. So that shows you that this team has a pretty damn good, just all-around solid core. Not many coaches in college basketball that I know are going to go 8 deep, and pretty much every guy except one played over 20. Flavors Jr. played 18 minutes. That shows that clearly this coach believes in his players or has a pretty well-rounded team. I would find it hard to believe, Chris, honestly, that you can find a group of players who just have that much depth. And maybe it has been the fact that there's probably been, I would say, roughly 5 to 7 games this year where Cunningham hasn't played for whatever reason. But when you're 8 deep for a college team and these kids are playing near all 20 minutes, that's a hell of a squad to have. And you went in there and beat a team who's been about as steady and consistent this year as any other team in the country, roughly. I know they're not, maybe West Virginia's not quite maybe Gonzaga-esque, but they're ranked 6th. They have maybe the best winning resume on road games for the whole country.
That's
and you
right.
go there and beat them in their own house. That's a hell of an accomplishment. And I know that when I did watch Oklahoma State earlier this year, they beat the tar out of Iowa State. But I liked how they rebounded the ball. And it's a small thing, maybe it's a big thing, but I was just checking the box score aside from the minutes played. Oklahoma State had 38 rebounds. West Virginia had 29. So that's 9 extra rebounds. That's 9 times you either got the ball up to put up a second shot on offense, or you were getting the ball back and it was your turn to go on offense to score. So you have a team with depth, a team that knows how to win without their stud. And again, when that guy does play, he's projected to be the number 1 pick in the country. And you have a pretty good low post game where you're physical. You're not soft like Alabama. So that's a positive they got going for them. But that's a nice win, Chris. And for Illinois, I dear God, it seems like every team in the Big Ten this year took turns at being the best in the conference, and they're definitely playing at this point the best there. Michigan had their run, Ohio State had their run. It's kind of been like a teams taking turns being the best, and as of right now, Illinois is playing beyond really well, and I hope that carries in the tournament, because the one downfall, Chris, is that we've seen this happen so much too. A team in the regular season has a great finish to the season, and then you either win all your conference tournament and you come in the major March Madness and lay an egg, or you finish the regular season hot, get cocky, get bounced out your first game in your conference tournament, you go in flat to March Madness. So all the karma and good sense is there for Illinois, but you got to keep it going, because sometimes all that great regular season momentum can lead to literally nothing in a March bracket.
Yeah, and just one more thing about that Oklahoma State squad. Anderson, the third, was 11 for 14. He took 2 threes, made one of them. Ended up with 31 points on 14 shots, got to the line 10 times. And really, besides Boone, no one could hit threes. They only hit 4 threes, but only took 14. So they're like, that's fine. So that, we're not going to shoot threes. It's kind of refreshing to see teams do that, where you're like, well, you don't always have to win or die, on that three, like we see Wisconsin, some other teams, especially this year. But yeah, that is a good point. I mean, sometimes you do come in. I mean, they beat Ohio State, beat Michigan, beat Wisconsin, beat Minnesota. Beat Wisconsin earlier. So they've been on a run, beat Iowa. I'm just going back. They lost back-to-back games at the beginning, or like the mid of January. That's where you thought, let's see more of them. And let's see, because they did lose to Rutgers. They lost to Mizzou early. And so I was kind of wondering, but man, they have closed. But yeah, that's true. You never know. I mean, they could fall flat on their face, but with that roster, with that experience, with that point guard, with that big, they got the veteran who went off the other day. They got Miller, the freshman. I think that they're going to be in good shape. Villanova lost their point guard to I think it's ACL. They actually lost to Providence 54-52, and Notre Dame snuck up and beat Florida State. 83-73. Florida State ended up, really rough way to end the season. So that one was kind of surprising a little bit, I'd say. Iowa and Wisconsin battled to a close game with a weird ending that took forever. It took forever like it was in the NBA, but even further than that, Iowa won 77-73. Iowa has closed really well as well. My upset of the week, Memphis, fell short to Houston at the buzzer. We got a little, buzzer-beaten feel, 67-64. And Michigan State pulled an upset, and that's not a big shocker. They're now 15-11. They're trying to stay in the tournament or even improve their seed if they actually had, something, a couple games here, win a couple games and whatnot. But Brooks, the senior guard, just twisted the you-know-what out of his ankle. It was a bad one. So Michigan goes down to their rival, but Baylor, 88-73. They looked really good yesterday, and just all around, all-purpose. Fidel had 10 points and 15 boards, had a couple of blocks, I believe. But Teague, the guard, 35 points on 11 of 16 shooting. And he was 10 of 20 from the three-point line. 10 of 20. They hit 15 threes, Marshall. When you hear 15, you're thinking, well, that's high 20s, maybe even in the 30s. No, 15 of 24, 62%. Shot 53% overall. This Baylor squad looked so good yesterday in what turned into be was a competitive game that got out of hand. It's not like Texas Tech played bad, but 10-12, there's not much you can do that. This Baylor team's really, it's like getting that loss out of the way to Kansas, who's been a rival to them too. I mean, this team is closing. They look like they got that rust off from the break, and here they are. They got their first Big 12, championship in a long, 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 long time. You're talking about 1950 is the last time, and they are now 4-0 against AP top 10 teams this year too. Baylor looked damn good, and Teague. Not that you're going to get 10-12 much, but wow.
Is that supposed to impress me after watching my boy Steph Curry win the three-point contest last night?
There was nobody guarding him, and we're talking college basketball. Keep moving.
Well, and you also missed Curry and Lillard both bust threes from half court in a live game. It wasn't much defense, but I'm just saying.
Is that an exhibition game, or was that an NBA game? Because I don't remember that going into the record.
If you want to talk about
none of those points. None of those points go into the record books. You do know that, right?
I'll give Baylor some minor credit. I mean, they ain't Steph Curry and Dame Lillard, but they're respectable. That's not too shabby. Not too shabby.
Well, we won't get into the defensive part of those two guys, but keep going.
Well, haters gonna hate. But yes, that is
and defenders are gonna defend.
That is a very nice performance. And I feel like this was a backhanded shot at me after last week when I referenced teams I decided to wager on who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Cough, Villanova going 2 of 27. So yes, when you have, and oh God, I don't even want to talk about Maryland this past week. I'm gonna ignore the Turtles. But yes.
Why are you putting money on Maryland? This isn't 2002, dude.
When you play a Northwestern team who is complete garbage and trash, and your team plays like trash, and you still almost win, you still almost cover it. It was an embarrassing performance. That's winning 5 games in a row. I just, like I said, moving on. I hope, and I'm so happy Maryland lost yesterday to Penn State. Credit to Baylor. Again, there's a lot of teams this year who do jack up the threes religiously, and they don't make a whole lot. Clearly, and you've referenced this almost every episode of the podcast this year about how they have players who shoot the threes, but they shoot them at a good clip. It has become a thing with, go figure, the guy I mentioned, Steph Curry, where three-pointers are more part of the college basketball game. That is true, for better or worse. But I also feel that as a sport in general, some coaches have given the players too much reign, because you'll watch games and guys will jack threes and they're just either contested threes or they're deeper than they should be, and these teams just continue to miss. And it's like, how many threes can
giving it to them too? Let's not forget about that, because that's what's happened with my Gophers. Teams are just giving them threes. Go ahead, you're gonna miss it anyway.
Yeah, and it's just like, dude, wouldn't you rather drive to the lane or go for a shot from the elbow or 12-foot jumper? And I mean, yeah, and again, obviously sometimes defense is good, sometimes bad, but if a team is consistently letting you jack up threes, and you keep missing them, hell, go for a foul, because God knows college refs love to call fouls. So I really don't quite get it. But aside from our little rant there, credit to Baylor. You had a phenomenal year. You have one loss on your resume, which was to a Kansas team who was just at that point probably playing the best of their whole season, and they kind of needed that win and everything. So yeah, you had one loss on the resume. Your resume is the second best line to Gonzaga. It's more stronger than Gonzaga. So could this be the year where Baylor makes the Final Four? They always have had the long, athletic, lanky teams, but maybe this is the year finally where this is a Baylor team who is not just the long and athletic, but could legit cut down a net. So we'll see how they do. I do think there's something to be said for, going there and doing it once. Carolina, when they won the title in 2009, they had a heartbreaking 2008 year with an injury. Virginia had the awful choke, and then they came back and won the title. Like a lot of times, it takes the deep run there as a team to get your feet wet, and then you come back and do it again. So this could be an angle, Chris, of where Baylor, okay, this is your year, make a run, and then next year Baylor wins the title. That's a lot of times it seems to be how it goes, just because you need that not that you necessarily need, but a lot of times teams need that deep run to experience it, and then you have that offseason of motivation to push you to the final stretch. But for a year, they, as you said, which is a lot of inconsistencies, if you're happening to fill out a bracket or you pick names out of a hat at a work pool and you get Baylor, you got to feel pretty good about your chances. And you also mentioned a team who's ranked right near them in Michigan, who they've been in a bit of a funk, as we've said, a couple of losses late, Chris. But I'm more so giving Sparty credit because their lives are literally on the line. They've been playing a little bit better of late, and it's a huge rivalry. That literally is Carolina Duke. Like Michigan State, they hate each other. They maybe don't get quite the notoriety of Carolina Duke, but it's just as fierce of a rivalry. Going back to God, I mean, there's tons of guys who played that, so it's not really a bad loss. I mean, sure, you don't want to lose a game as Michigan, but I don't really see that slowing them down by any means. So, but yeah, credit to Baylor. They're a hell of a squad. They've been solid, consistent all year, and a great one by Sparty. And as I was looking before our show started, Chris, as of right now, Sparty's on that last 4 to last 8 teams in. So they've pulled together just a couple of nice wins right now to get Izzo into March. But the Big Ten tournament could either be their final piece or the close the door on you see you next year. Because let's say Sparty was to lose the first Big Ten conference game this year, they're going to the NIT or whatever. So a good win for Sparty. You're there. You probably need one Big Ten tournament win, then you're in the tournament. And just for the sake of college basketball, Chris, Tom Izzo being in the tournament is always just a plus.
Yeah, and I'm going to take a wild guess that he doesn't get beat out of that. But let's hear Dickie V about Baylor.
Let's think about this. You lead the nation shooting the threes. You're up there in terms of assists per game, 17 a game, 11th in the nation. Scoring margin, third, 20 points a game differential. 3-point field goal games, 10.4, 9th in the nation. Steals, they're 7th in the nation. Turnover margin, they're 4th, and that's why they sit.
Do you see what I'm saying? It's not just this wild 3-point shooting, steals, assists, moving the ball. They have the differential of Gonzaga, basically, except we all know the difference there, night in and night out, and just highlighting it. These are 3-point – I've never seen this on a team, Marshall, in college basketball, especially not pro. 44%, 40%, 47, 41, 43, and 41. Now that's 6 guys. I've been saying 5 guys the whole year. They have 6 guys over 40% and above. You just don't see that, but they have 2 bigs, and one of them they can feed the ball to. So I'm basically my hand is on the table, and I think I'm moving all the chips in. That's why I had to play the Dickie V to get everybody excited about it. But it was pretty, like when you said KU, you know how they closed. They ended up getting second in the conference, dude. I do respect that. It's like, wow, you looked lost about a month ago, 5 weeks ago. Texas, ended up actually a game or half a game behind them in third. West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and OU basically are 9 and 8 as well. But I mean, that's still 7 teams currently ranked in the top 25. When you look at, the top heavy stuff, Oklahoma, right now, do you think Oklahoma State's the second best team in the conference? Forget the standings, just looking at it right there, those 7 teams or would you go with KU or West Virginia, or even Texas, who's gotten some of their shit together, because they actually have a lot of talent and veteran leadership. They just, they haven't been able to get out of their way. They did of late, but is Oklahoma State the second best team?
Well, God, I think Oklahoma a month ago was considered maybe the best team in the conference. I would say yes, Chris. Yes, second best behind one. That's when Baylor was off too. So I guess however you want to view that. Yeah, I would say that I would trust them the most going into March, because in a year where I've seen so much as we mentioned, poorly played offenses who jack up threes due to a lack of skillful point guards, I would say they're the best now because they have probably the best player in the conference. So Baylor, hands down, is the most complete team, as you read from the stats and the record and the resume and however you want to view it. But this is a team who's learned how to win without their guy. And on a given night, when, again, I've seen so many teams go for 5-minute drops without scoring this year, and that's
or
not,
foul
I mean,
problems.
just so many
Cunningham
teams.
gets into foul problems.
Yeah. So you now have a guy who's probably a projected number 1 overall pick. Dude, you're not going to have a 5-minute scoring drought, period. Like they have that asset. So yes, I would put them as the second best team right now in the Big 12, simply due to the star power they have. Because when it comes to clutch moments, and you're in a tournament run, you have a guy that can get you a bucket. If he has an off night, so be it. Ride and die with the guy. It's all good. But so many teams lack good point guards this year, and that's a huge advantage to have this time of the year. Now, I'm not saying that Kansas and Texas Tech and West Virginia, all these teams don't have it, but if they do, that guy does not have the notoriety or the skill level that Cunningham has showcased to the fans this year.
Yeah, or the size either. In fact, it's going to be like the Golden State and Minnesota trying to go neck and neck down the stretch off of the Timberwolves, trying to get this Cunningham on their squad. Now, we talked about Xavier. Now, I bring this up because me and you agree that the fifth ranked 11-7, 4 games out of Baylor, is the second best team in the Big 12. Now, when you look at the Big East, right, you got Nova, Creighton. Nova won it just barely. Cunningham, Connecticut, St. John's, Seton Hall, Providence, and then there's Xavier. They're 13-7. They're 6-7 in the conference. And when you look at it, they do have a win, an early win over Oklahoma. Okay, so that's a good win, and it was I don't remember seeing the game, so I don't know if somebody was missing or if there's foul problems, but they won 99-77, right? But then, they were kind of lose 2, win 2, but they took probably one of the longest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. I mean, they took off from the 10th. Oh my God, they took off from the 10th to the 30th of January. Then they missed 2 games and came back the 13th, lost 2 in a row, beat Butler, lost to Providence, ended up beating Creighton, and then now they've lost 2 in a row. It is kind of weird. So they're basically the fact that they beat Creighton and beat Oklahoma, that's why they're in the tournament. Because otherwise you really can't say, oh, yeah, they should be in the tournament. That's a funky one. That's a funky one. It's kind of what we were talking about, highlighting it. Like, what do you do with these teams,
Yeah, because and God, I hope next year is more normal. We're not going to have many years again like this, Chris, where you have teams that have such long breaks off. It's just, and I know, and so again, it's going to be really interesting to see how the committee handles this and how they seed people. But I think, yeah, because you can almost go conference by conference. Like, we could do the same thing for the Big East. Virginia Tech, who is in the ACC, who's been ranked from about 15 to 25 all year, had like a 2.5 week off break, and they came back and lost the game to a team who was near the bottom of the conference. So, just to flip coast here, can you penalize a Virginia Tech team who has 2.5 weeks off and then loses a game where you would normally say on the resume, well, God, what is the 16th ranked team in the country doing, losing the game to a team that's in the bottom of the ACC? But dudes didn't play in 18 days. So,
right.
We could legit do a podcast on every conference who've had rough patches and just kind of div it out, and it's going to be interesting to see. And again, that's going to be on the committee. So
they got a win over Nova too, Virginia Tech, by the way.
Yeah. So it'll just be really interesting to see how that plays out, and that's a question we really can't answer because we would probably spend a couple hours on here. But if you're a team who had that long break, hopefully the committee gives you the benefit of the doubt. If not, I don't know. Yeah, it's such a weird spot for everyone to be in for that scenario.
And Oregon won back-to-back Pac-12 conference championships during the regular season. Now, they do play basketball in the Pac-12, guys, just so you know. They're not ranked. They're 14-4, but USC's ranked. They got a nice win too, 15-5, and Colorado ended up 14-6. UCLA ended up 13-6 after really leading that conference pretty much the whole year almost. Alabama pretty much handled it 16-2. The softies, like they're the softest 16-2 team ever. Arkansas 13-4. They ended up really, really strong. And then it just kind of fall off. It's kind of like, well, what Tennessee and Florida team's going to show up that day? That Auburn, which ones are they going to show up that day? And turns out we were wrong about Auburn. They ended up 13-14, 7-11 in the conference. But Arkansas got all the way up to 8th in the country. I can't say that I saw that coming either. Kind of like talking about Oklahoma State.
Yeah, a month ago they weren't even ranked, and now they're looking at probably a 2 to 3 number on their seed line, which is like holy shit. So whatever Arkansas was doing at the middle of the season, they found their mojo. And again, is this a team you want to put in your Sweet 16, or is this a team who's gonna just flame out game one? But the way they're playing right now, dude, that is not a team you want to play. They get them down the court. They play at a very fast pace. They shoot the ball pretty damn well because all their scores seem to be in the high 80s. So Arkansas is, dude, and they took care of Bama about a week and a half ago. So them in Illinois are probably about as hot as you can get for teams, Chris. It's just surprising, too, because during a lot of the SEC play, we talked about Bama. Mizzou for a bit there was second place. They've had a little bit of a falter on and off with just inconsistency on offense, but it kind of was the Alabama show. And now Arkansas is the hottest team in the SEC land. And dear God, I'm giving advice right now, and to each their own. But when you're filling out a bracket, I would not put Tennessee anywhere near past winning a game. Dude, that team, their offense is horrendous. If you look at their box scores, that team, I don't know how the hell they've stayed ranked. And I don't know how they're getting the seed they deserve, because that offense is atrocious. Do not pick Tennessee to win a game. I'm not saying they can't, but dear Lord, you're really risking a lot if you think the Volunteers can win a game March Madness. I'm throwing that out there, Chris. This team I will have losing. I don't care who they're playing. Tennessee will lose round one. Yep.
Whew, I got to see that. We know we're going to highlight that when we see that round one. That's for sure. Tonight.
I'm taking anyone.
Right. What about my Gophers? That might be a close game. That would be a triple overtime. No, you win. I don't want to score. I don't want to score. So Gonzaga and St. Mary's, usually a good matchup tonight. 24-0 Gonzaga. They're an 18.5-point spread favorite. I'm gonna go with St. Mary's to cut under that 18.5 just for the hell of it. Of course, the Big East and ACC and everything starts to get going. Here in a little bit. Any other items that you'd like to discuss? Because obviously we're not going to preview and all that type of thing. But any other thing that's on your mind before we shut this puppy down, sir?
I'll just say
we can talk about Baylor more. I got more clips.
I'm just really looking forward, honestly, to who wins the Big Ten. This has been such a deep conference all year, and you legit probably have 7 teams in the Big Ten now who could be anywhere from a 2 to a 3 seed. So in a year where there are a lot of inconsistent teams I've watched all year play who have their offensive droughts, if you do get a 2 to 3 seed, I think that could be really huge, just having an easier path to the Sweet 16. So, I mean, if you're Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Purdue, pretty much anyone up top the Big Ten, if you can win the Big Ten Conference, which, again, deserves you a shitload of credit, you're going to be sitting in a really nice seat. So I guess my one thing will be fun to see is just how the matchups go, how the seeds are sorted out, because right now there's probably for sure probably 8 teams in the Big Ten making the tournament. And it'll just be a fascinating conference tournament. And again, sometimes, coaches say, though, where you win the conference tournament and you put in so much time and effort and you come out flat for the main one. Or like we always used to reference the Big East. Dude,
oh, yeah.
There were so many times where an underdog team would win
5
the Big
straight
East tournament.
Nights. Yeah,
but
and then they're just done.
Dude, game one, and everyone's filling out their bracket like, oh, dude, Syracuse or
You're gonna go all the way.
The Big East all the way. It's like, dude, peace, see ya. And
meanwhile, the
coaches
dudes are like not even bending their knees when they walk. They're just like, oh, dude, my ass is chapped. I can't play anymore. I'm good, dude. Like, yeah, that happens, dude. That is a good point.
Yeah. As a coach, you're like, as a coach, they're like, dude, I can't even blame my players. Dude, we just won 5 games in Madison Square Garden in a row. Like, right. I wish we'd had 2 weeks off. I'm sorry to all of our fans. But you can't blame the kids. This is not on them. It's not on me. We put on a show for an MSG.
Exactly.
And now this is it.
That was your championship,
Oh, yeah. And so for my one betting tidbit, so Villanova's got massive injuries, and they've been in a funk. And Creighton's been in a bit of a funk from comments made by their head coach, which is not good either, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Why would that word even come into play?
I've given a lot of speeches as a coach in my life. I've never said it. So if you're looking for an angle to bet, look for UConn to win the Big East, who now that my boy Booknight is back is a possible threat, or even a team like Providence or Seton Hall. Kind of a long shot in the dark there, but Providence, Seton Hall, UConn. Providence, dude, that team, they've had like 5 heartbreaking losses this year, and that is a good squad who probably, if they win a couple of games, is on the bubble and make it to the tournament. So don't be looking to bet Creighton or Nova just because they've been inconsistent throughout the year, and Creighton's dealing with a little bit of drama. But look at UConn, Providence. Seton Hall, I've always thought if they could ever get their S together, is a really talented team. But again, they've been inconsistent. So the Big East should offer some fun situational props for some nice money. So yeah, that'll kind of be wrapping up. But the Big 10, Big 12, and the Big East should be just hours of me doing nothing but sit on my couch enjoying basketball this weekend, Chris. Something we were gonna do last year. Now we finally get to enjoy it this year. Knock on wood.
No kidding. I'm still just sitting back with popcorn, waiting to see how all these 17 teams you got into the Final Four is going to go actually get into the Final Four. This is tricky. Okay. Now Gonzaga. Okay. A lot of people think, oh, just give them the trophy. A lot of people think, what the hell are you talking about? What do you? They don't play anybody. I get that they don't play anybody, especially this year. In their conference, I should say. But let's not forget, and this is early on, right? For everyone, though, it was early on for them too. They have a win over Kansas, I should say plural, wins over Kansas, Auburn, now that was the different Auburn, but still Auburn, West Virginia, Iowa, and Virginia. So let's calm down on the slander. But also, let's not just hand them the trophy. I'm down with that too. But, they got a good squad. It's deep. They haven't been really pressured, like really, really pressured down the stretch of a game in a long, long time. Maybe that Iowa game or Virginia game. But those are damn good names and almost as good as a lot of folks. But now if they had to play in the Big 12 or the Big 10, sure, they would have losses. How many? I don't know, but they would have losses. But they're a damn good team. And like we said, it's funny. Here we are in March 8th. We said this mid-January on our first show. If this is what better time to win the championship than now for Gonzaga? You know what I'm saying? Why don't you comment on that if you want, and then, shut us down.
Yeah, this is their year. They got potential NBA players. They got a relatively easy path. There's really not a bunch of other, in the views of many people, loaded teams as much as them. You could say Baylor's maybe on the top step of the mountain with Gonzaga, but that's about it. I mean, I could 2 weeks ago, Chris and I listed the top 18 ranked teams, and I had 12 who had like pretty strong issues, but were still also ranked. So this is a wide open year for them to do it. I'll ask you one question, Chris, and I will wrap up the pod. If you could bet $100 on the championship of the March Madness will be Gonzaga / Baylor, or bet the field, would you bet the field, or $100 gives me Gonzaga and Baylor? Which do you take, my friend?
I really wish you would have told me this question. This is a really good question. I'm going to answer that next week when the field's there. Okay.
Deal.
I got to think.
That's fair. That's a bet.
I got to think about that because that is a damn good question. So the championship game is Baylor, Gonzaga, or the whole field?
No. Who cuts down the net? And Vegas has this bet made. So it'll be, yeah, we'll see. We'll hit that up next week when we go over the bracket. But
just so I understand, it's either those two or the field, or those two meeting in the championship, and then you get the field.
Oh no, either one of those two teams win, or you get the rest of the field.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think?
I would bet against it just because I think this year's been so crazy, and I think that Gonzaga might slip up. I would take the other 62 teams, but Vegas has it like as to like Gonzaga and Baylor like minus 120. So there's a slight edge of Vegas saying we think that Gonzaga or Baylor are the top two and they're going to take care of it. But that's a bet you can make on a website of yours, or however you want to choose to gamble. But that's an option out there. It should be to many.
So it's about 2 to 13 or 14 probably, or 2 to 10 or something.
Yeah.
I know you said 60, of course. You have the field, but that's a great question. That's a really great question. I'm going to answer that next week. It'll be a teaser.
Until then, keep wearing a mask, stay safe, and please, God, just find your favorite drink, your favorite pizza, your favorite sports bar, and enjoy a lot of good basketball this week, and then we got the bracket coming out. I cannot wait to do a bracket show because we got robbed of a great bracket this past year, and I hope it doesn't happen again this year. The boys are out. Thanks for all the love and support. Have a good night. Peace.